All right, we're gonna go ahead and get things going this morning. Want to thank you all for coming out to lovely Manassas. We try to do this at 10 o'clock so you wouldn't have to fight with traffic either coming out here or heading back to wherever your day jobs are. My name is Dan Soschin, and you can find me at these various locations. You can tweet me. You can go to my blog and bore yourself with marketing posts. I am the Director of Interactive Marketing, and I like playing with this new toy I got, so I'm going to be using it a lot. What I'm responsible for is managing social media, direct response marketing, CRM, lead generation, enrollment, evangelism, pretty much anything online with our university. And American Public University System, if you haven't heard of us, we have two schools. One's called American Military University, and then the other one's American Public University. We're 100% online. And can everybody in the back hear me okay? Is that good? Excellent, thumbs up. So we have 105,000 students taking classes with us. And I often say we're the largest university you probably haven't heard of. Being online, all of our classes are delivered over the internet, and 65,000 students of ours are affiliated with the military somehow. They're either active duty, veterans, or they're military affiliated with one of the branches. And that gives us a lot of exposure to the public safety community, fire, police, law enforcement, public safety, EMS, and disaster management. So we have a lot of unique courses. But anyway, if you're interested in checking us out, it's American Public University System, and that's where we are. And I have three coworkers at least here with me today. They're up in the front row here. Keisha is my senior manager of social media and blogging, and next to her is Nicole Rodriguez, and she is our tweet master and social media manager. And then over here I've got Noah, who is on our systems team, and obviously he's our AV guy today, but he runs email and web stuff for us. And we're hiring. Woohoo! We've got about 50 positions open at the university, located between either here, Manassas, our headquarters also is in Charlestown, West Virginia, which is about an hour from here, and we've got positions open there. If you're interested in a marketing position, just talk with one of us after the event, and we'll hook you up. Okay, so what else can I tell you before we jump in? Where are we today? Well, I like quotes because that way I don't really have to do any work. A brand is no longer what we tell the consumer it is what consumers tell each other it is, right? I think that holds true to a lot of us in what we do, especially if you're a product-based company. We can, as marketers, we can go out and say our product is the best, right? But at the end of the day, if our consumers go out and tell all their Facebook friends and family that it's not, they're going to have quite a bit of weight. McDonald's had a great quote, "Our head of social media is the customer." So kind of along that same lines. And then Dave Alston said, "Social media is not media. The key is to listen, engage, and build relationships." And we're going to talk about that today, how to measure that. And I wanted to actually kind of get things a little bit kind of lighter and looser. So the first thing I want to do is a poll. How many of you have an Apple iPhone, MacBook of some sort, or an iPad? Can you raise your hands? Okay. Keep your hands up if you owned an Apple device 5 years ago. Oh, wow. Okay. That's surprising. Usually when I ask that, like 90% of everybody raises their hand, and then 5 years ago, everybody puts them down. I guess I need to say like 7 years ago or 8 years ago. That poll's getting a little old. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with one of my favorite viral videos of the day that's related to marketing. You may or may not have seen this video before. If you have, feel free to continue laughing.
We're seeing a shift in consumer habits. Everything is moving towards caffeine use. And the agencies that don't realize that will get left behind.
Cat videos are an unbelievably effective new business tool. We've seen phenomenal growth in this category. We're taking that learning and applying it to our business model.
In 2012, John Street will lead the industry into a brand new communications era with the launch of the world's first and only catvertising agency.
Cat videos provide an excellent return on investment. The costs are minimal. It's win-win.
By 2015, cat videos are going to represent 90% of the content on the World Wide Web. It's proven results.
Using the 4 pillars of creativity, we provide work that's persuasive, unignorable, relevant, and rememberable. Our goal is to integrate cat videos into every stage of the customer experience, 24/7, 365.
To facilitate this change, we've incorporated our own cat video production studio.
Okay, we're rolling.
Filming, writing, seating, all completely in-house.
Creating a good cat video is no accident. A lot of people think you just show up in a room with a camera and a couple of cats and start filming, but it takes a tremendous amount of planning. We storyboard every frame. We actually created our first cat video in February of 2008. The cat approaches the camera slowly from afar, then the camera would pan to the right, and then when it comes back, the cat's closer. Really, I think that was the kind of magic moment in the spot. It kind of came up 7 for us, I guess, you might say. You think sometimes you're going to run out of material with cats, but you never do. You come in on Monday and you go, oh my God, trombone cat, and it's excellent.
In an era of unprecedented change, there's one agency with the courage to change everything.
Nobody wants to see ads anymore. They want cat videos.
Ask yourself, what can cat videos do for your business?
Okay, so I'm hoping you realize there's no catvertising agencies. I love that video. I can't exactly put my finger on why, but hey, we want to get a presentation here. There we go. But it really illustrates that we're in constant change, right? What we did 3 years ago as marketers is a lot different than what we do now. There's statistics like 50% of the jobs in marketing didn't even exist 10 years ago. So social media is at the forefront of that. It's what's really out there, and the opportunities are boundless. And so what we're going to talk about today, oh, first I have a poll. So actually, let's go. There we go. What we're going to talk about today, here we go. In about 65 minutes, hopefully 30 minutes we'll talk about theory, 30 minutes we'll talk about, or actually show you some stuff you can do in Google Analytics and Facebook Insights, some reports you can run right now, and then 5 minutes I'll hopefully not waste, but we spend it on that cat video, so hopefully that was the best not the best 5 minutes of the presentation. And then we should have a few minutes for Q&A at the end. So we're going to talk about, what are our objectives for using social media, defining those metrics and KPIs, so translating the objectives into things we can measure. I'm just going to briefly talk about monitoring. This really isn't a session on using Radian 6 or Google Alerts, so we're just going to glance over that. We'll talk about free and paid tools for measurement, mostly the free stuff, because free is good. And then that's going to translate into Google Analytics and Facebook Insights, so we'll spend some time on that. And then, of course, Excel. So anyway, quick poll. No hands for this one, but how much do you think another fan on your Facebook page is worth to your business? Is it $136.38, $8, $360, nada, depends. I have no clue. That's why I signed up for your session. So these numbers, A, B, C, and D, are from actual analyst reports, and I think one of those analyst companies is here in the audience, so I'll put her on the spot in a minute. But these are all from actual research reports, like highly paid, highly compensated, lots of man hours, and they came up with these. So think about that. What is it worth to your business? And we'll revisit this a little bit later. Okay, so jumping in, why do we want to measure, and how are we going to measure? So I like to ask people, what's the ROI of your mom? So next time somebody, maybe not your boss, but somebody asks you, what's the ROI of what you're doing? What's the ROI of Facebook, Twitter, all those hours you're spending? If you want to snap back, just say, what's the ROI of your mom, right? It's not something that you can measure, the ROI of your mom. You might be able to, and I'll show you a really cool screen in a second. But that quotes this guy Gary for Crush It in response to that question. But really, I'm going to try to help you get past this and talk about these three things: ROI, opportunity, and risk. The first thing we want to do is, what is the ROI of social media, and how can we break that down? Well, first, you want to talk about things that you can actually measure in your business. What is social media? Why are you using social media? As a university, our uses may be a lot different than if you're selling cell phones, right? So for us, social media is about engagement. It's about talking with our students and recreating that classroom experience, which doesn't exist. There's no campus commons where people can grab, a cup of coffee in between classes. So for us, social media is about engagement and recreating that social experience. How we are successful in that and how we measure that is going to determine our ROI. However, if you're a business that's predicated on a transactional business model, i.e., you're B2C and you're selling cell phone plans, or you're getting people to sign up for a service, your ROI and your tools for measuring it are going to vary quite a bit. You're going to be counting things like e-commerce and sales. So your ROI is going to kind of be articulated and reported differently. There is no standard template for measuring social media. I think you realize that by now, otherwise you probably wouldn't be here, and your job would be a lot easier. You just fill in a spreadsheet every week and send in your reports. However, opportunity can be defined for your business through some of these metrics. So I want you to think about, as we go through this and I show you some reports, what is important for your business? Because ultimately that's going to tell you what you need to measure. For instance, I'm going to get into some metrics. Before I do that, I want to talk about risk and opportunity a little bit further. So we do social media to find new opportunities often. So the opposite of an opportunity could be a risk. So do we have more seats? Does anybody have a seat back there? Great, excellent, thanks. Standing room only. Okay, so risk. It's important to measure risk when you're doing social media because that completes the picture. So what are some of the risks that you might know about? Well, the first thing is the conversation about your company or your business is probably already happening whether or not you're listening and whether or not you're participating in that conversation. So you risk not knowing what people are saying, and you risk being too reactive. So if somebody has a bad customer experience and you're not there ready to listen or engage, or even correct that situation, then the risk could be profound, right? I could have a bad customer experience, I'll tweet it out, I'll put it on my Facebook page. If I'm influential in the world, a lot of people might see that. That's a huge risk for your business, especially if that risk can be corrected. If it's a customer service issue and all it takes is a phone call or an email, or if it's something that's not true, right? Somebody's spreading a lie. So risk is extraordinarily important, and you want to be able to measure that and report on that. So let's talk about some of those metrics that are going to get us started. I'm a little worn out from a sinus infection I was battling last week, so I'm going to be drinking quite a bit. I apologize. Okay, whoa, look at that. There we go. So metrics and KPIs, key performance indicators, that's what KPI stands for. Okay, so let's talk about some traditional metrics. Anybody want to take a stab, just shout out some traditional metrics that you can measure right now?
Clicks.
Yeah, clicks.
Referrals.
Referrals.
Opens.
Yeah, opens, things like fans on your Facebook page, retweets. Those are all, I call that the low-hanging fruit. And those are the traditional metrics. Subscribers, if you have a video, the number of people who viewed it, and you can go onto YouTube actually and look at all those metrics on YouTube Insights. So those traditional metrics will kind of tell part of the story, but we're going to fill it in with all this other stuff. So obviously referrals. What we're talking about referrals is you're on Facebook, you post a message and it's got a link to your site. And people are going from Facebook, clicking that link, going over to your site. And I'll show you how to report on that really, really easily on Google Analytics if you can't get there. Do we have any more seats open? A couple more over here in the middle? Great, okay. So referrals are really, really important, especially if we're trying to get people to our website, or we're trying to get people to a landing page to sign up or actually do something. Facebook Insights, really, really important. We can get a lot of metrics out of Facebook about reach and engagement. So we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. And we're also going to talk about earned media. Before we go into earned media, there's some other things we can measure, right? Commerce. So if we post a coupon code on Facebook or we tweet it out, we can count how many people use that, right? So those are really some low-hanging fruit, some easy things for us to measure. We can attribute commercial transactions to our social media programs so we have the right tracking codes in place. Sentiment. Okay, this is kind of new to the world of marketing. We've always had sentiment, right, since the dawn of time. But to be able to measure it now and report on it is becoming really, really important. However, I'm not really keen on making this front and foremost when I report to our executives and to the deans. And the reason is, the internet is biased. Inherently, people tweet out really negative experiences, and happy customers typically fall on that neutral spectrum and don't do anything. So you're always going to have kind of this bell curve, where most people are going to fall in that top of the curve, in that center area, and you're always going to have some negatives because those tend to populate on the internet, especially because of the anonymity of sites like Ripoff Report or ConsumerComplaints.com and things like that. So I don't focus too much on sentiment. I just use it as a directional metric, meaning I track it over time, and on a week-to-week basis, it doesn't really tell a story. But if I track it every week, over 52 weeks, I can kind of see how that curve changes. Engagement, really, really important. Engagement is as important to measure internally as it is externally. And what I mean by that is you want to make sure you're listening to your customers and having meaningful conversations on places like Facebook and Twitter. So what you want to do is start measuring those conversations. You can count them and classify them into different buckets. I'm going to show you a really cool dashboard that's easy to create that shows you how to measure engagement. But this shows you over time how your exposure to your fan base and your followers is either increasing or decreasing. And then you can start correlating that to some of these other metrics like commerce. So you know if your engagement in the first quarter was 100 engagements, meaning you had 100 distinct or meaningful conversations on Facebook, LinkedIn, or wherever you're spending your time, and the second quarter you had 200, you can then start correlating that to things like commerce. Or again, if you're measuring traditional metrics like signups, you had 300 signups on your newsletter in the first quarter and 600 in the second quarter. You can start correlating these traditional metrics, and that's going to start completing that picture. Because 500 views of a video doesn't really tell you anything, right? I mean, I don't know, for us, if somebody watches 500 videos of our online eCampus tour, that doesn't tell me anything. But if I start comparing that to what the call to action is after watching that video, I can start drawing some conclusions. Conversions, very, very important. We're marketers. At the end of the day, our job is to drive revenue typically. And so as we define the objectives for our business, again, if it's signups, if it's e-commerce, if it's positive media, counting those conversions and charting them over time and then comparing them to these traditional metrics and referrals will start telling us a complete story. And then of course the holy grail, organic traffic. We'd all be out of a job if we could just build a website and then people would start buying our stuff. I haven't really seen anybody do that. I mean, even Apple advertises on TV. and I saw a commercial for Google Plus the other day. I mean, think about it. Google has more money than pretty much any company, and it realizes it needs to advertise its product. So organic traffic, really, really important. One of the things we do at the university is we do television advertising, and you may have seen our commercials, and if not, you'll probably go home and you'll be like, oh, I just saw them. So we'll show a commercial, and we know when the commercial aired, and then we can look at traffic to our website, and the organic traffic particularly. And we can see that when we advertise on TV, we get more traffic on our website, right? So it's a simple concept. So you can measure organic traffic over time based upon the amount of time and money you're investing in your social media effort. So it's really important to go back to that ROI. You might not be spending millions of dollars buying Facebook ads or employing agencies to do all of these social media campaigns and promotions to get fans and likes, but you're still spending your time, and your time has an ROI to it. You probably have more things on your plate than you have time in the day to do. And so, you know, we all have to manage our own agenda. And so you've got to, at the end of the day, figure out what to focus on and where to spend your time. Do you do email marketing? Do you do Facebook? Do you write a piece of collateral? Do you spend a couple days making one of these and ordering it in a couple $100s? So for you to be able to measure the impact of your efforts, even if it's time, so that you can calculate that ROI, and then your boss or your dean or your president says, you know, why should I pay you the big bucks that I'm paying you? Hopefully they are. You can explain to them that you're getting more organic traffic and you're building the website, and that's because of you. So you can look at referrals and those traditional metrics, and you can tie them to e-commerce. So all of this together tells a story, and I'm going to show you how to pull some reports together to tell that story and to communicate it. And then the last two are important. I'm just going to quickly touch on them. Social influence. This is also a little bit new, obviously, to the world. We've always had it. So if somebody at the Manassas newspaper writes an article about your business, and somebody at the New York Times writes an article about your business, obviously there's a little bit different weight, right? The Manassas one is not going to have the reach. So social influence is the same concept, but online. If I retweet something that I said, or Nicole retweets something I said, that only goes so far, right? We only have a few followers. We don't have a huge influence. But if Bill Gates retweets something, or Ashton Kutcher, or somebody with a lot of followers, right, and they retweet you, that's a lot of influence. And we've seen that, right? We've seen huge movements. The banking protests, the Arab Spring in the Middle East, that's all driven by social media and social influence, right? So the more we can get our message in front of important people, the better we're going to do, but also the more risk we have, right? If somebody doesn't like us and says something negative, that has a lot of risk. So you want to monitor and manage that, and the way you can do that is when you have your sentiment or when you have your engagement, you can kind of score it. And you can look at tools like Clout. If you haven't been to that site, it's K-L-O-U-T. It's not perfect, but it's an interesting way to benchmark your exposure. And then when somebody tweets you out, you can kind of see what their score is and determine whether or not that's worth dealing with. And then competitors' position. This is a huge one, okay? Knowing what your competition is doing is really, really, really important, okay? A lot of people forget about this. You're out there engaging on Facebook with your fans, you're tweeting out your press releases, you're responding to things, customer service, you think everything's going great. But what you don't realize is that your competition might be doing something differently. I'll give you a quick example and then I'll share a case study with you later. But you can get a lot of great ideas just by listening to your competitors. So whatever you're doing to listen to your keywords, if it's hashtags, if it's you're following obviously your own fan page and your own handle on Twitter, you should be doing that with your competitor, and you should be looking at what they do to find two things. First, opportunity. What are they doing that you could be doing? Are they doing a promotion? Is it a great idea? Okay, maybe you guys should be doing that. Or risk. Are they saying something negative about you? Or are they creating negative opportunities, meaning negative buzz, or are they growing their market share in a different direction that's going to change your message, right? If everybody starts talking about one thing and you're talking about something different and everybody's listening, so all of a sudden if a new iPad comes out, iPad 3 with the smaller screen, if you caught that rumor yesterday, everybody's talking about that and you're still selling the big iPad 2, but nobody wants it anymore, you don't know. So if you're looking at your competitor and you say, oh, my competitors are talking about that, that identifies some opportunity and you can evaluate whether or not you want to participate in that conversation. So that's really important that you focus on listening to your competitors. It's corporate spying, really, but it's legal. Okay, so I mentioned that we talk about monitoring. For me, and again for the university, social media is all about listening. That is our ultimate objective. Again, for you it might be about creating buzz or sign-ups to a newsletter or conversions on a landing page for a transaction. For us, again, it comes down to those three things we talked about a minute ago: ROI, risks, and opportunities. And we measure all of those three things through monitoring. And so when you're going to approach monitoring, again, you're going to uncover new opportunities, identify risks. If you're not listening, you don't know what those risks are. You're going to be able to measure and you're going to be able to track things over time. And then the last thing I want to say is you can monitor for something I like to call brand interception. So the way brand interception works is, let's say you're listening on Twitter and you sell iPads. Somebody says, I am really excited about going to Best Buy tomorrow to buy my iPad. And because you're following that keyword iPad on Twitter, or your competitor Best Buy, that you see that tweet, you could tweet back to that person saying, how come you're choosing Best Buy? Why, what's influencing you? By the way, I work at H.H. Gregg, right down the street from Best Buy, and we're having a sale with a gift card. So here's somebody that was really excited about buying an iPad. The transaction was going to happen later that day, or they were going to go over to the Best Buy, they're going to slap down $600 and buy an iPad. And what you've been able to do just by listening is observe that transaction and maybe tweet back saying, hey, what about H.H. Gregg? What about us? And potentially interject your brand into the decision set and convince them otherwise. So this translates to almost any industry. Now, there's a big brother effect to this, right? Well, how'd you know I was going to Best Buy? Well, I knew it, dummy, because you just tweeted it out. So you have to be a little bit careful, right? You don't want to be too big brother. But I'll tell you, this works really well. And for every time it doesn't work for you, there'll be a time it does. So what you're doing is you're intercepting a conversation occurring about another brand in your space, and you're just interjecting your business into that decision set. It is a great way to grow your opportunity. How many of you work at other colleges here? I know there's maybe one or two. So one of the things we do, I'm going to give you my secret sauce, is we listen just to what people are talking about education. And so like a report will come out, the top 10 online universities or whatnot, and we won't be listed, and we'll be like, well, wait a second, we should have been on that list. So because we're listening not to just our keywords, American Public University, American Military University, because we're listening to the greater industry, we kind of intercept that conversation, and we can contact that person and say, hey, that report you wrote, how come you didn't consider us? Or what made you choose those other 10 schools? And so that is both a risk and an opportunity. We risk not being included, and there's a great opportunity for being included. So when you do monitoring, you want to build a plan, who will monitor, and why. We're a big university, we've got about 2,000 employees. There's a lot of people doing social media. We have almost 3 full-time resources dealing with social media every day. But again, we're doing a lot of engagement. I know that at your business you may not have the budget to have 3 social media people. We have people in student affairs, alumni offices, so really we've got probably about a dozen people actively in social media. So you want to have a plan. If it's not just you, Maybe it's you, but your CEO gets Google Alerts or something. Or you have a customer service department and you have a sales department, and they're both kind of using social media. Well, who responds to what? Who manages what account? So you want to have a plan. I'm not going to cover how to build a plan or how to create these processes for monitoring. But I do have a really cool flow chart, which I'll show you at the end of the session today, and we'll pass it out that you can take with you. And yeah, we'll pass it out later. And the flow chart will kind of help you get an idea of how to approach things like coordinating different departments, escalating issues to other departments. So if our social media team sees a tweet where a student is having trouble with financial aid, it's our job to engage because we're the social media team. So what we do is we tweet back saying, hey, we see that you're having an issue, we can help. Please give us a moment and we're going to try to get to the bottom of it for you. So we're immediately kind of acknowledging the issue. But behind the scenes, Nicole or Keisha or somebody on our team, they're taking that issue and they're going through the back end and finding out where that issue should go, and they're contacting financial aid and working it that way. And then if the issue doesn't get resolved, we escalate it. So you want to have a plan and a process for triaging issues and identifying when it's appropriate to respond and engage and when it's not, right? So you have a troll. These are people we call trolls that are on the internet and they're only out to say something negative. They probably don't have long spiky hair and live under a bridge, but they live under anonymity, right? So they'll go to a website and just totally trash you. You have no way of engaging the person or solving the problem. Does it make sense for you to post a reply? Does it make sense? You have to think about the risk and the opportunity. Engaging that person might antagonize them further. Can you really win that conversation? If somebody says something that's false, is it worth correcting? You have to understand the pros and cons of doing that as well. So we've got a cool flow chart I'll give you guys later. And if you haven't noticed, we've got sort of I'm going through this phase where all my PowerPoints right now. I was in Vegas last week presenting on social media for small businesses, and we just talked about cats and dogs all day long. These guys are watching this little hamster guy. So they're monitoring, right? And this poor hamster, at least he's got a cage, but you know, I don't know if he realizes he's quite all right there. Okay, so tools for measuring social media. Okay. So this is what we're going to cover today. Google Analytics, Facebook Insights, and Excel. Free stuff we won't cover today. Google Alerts. If you're not doing Google Alerts, you need to by the end of the day. So either Google it now and just tune me out, or Google it later. And obviously just type in Google Alerts, and it's very easy to set up. Hyper Alerts, Social Mention, Hootsuite, TweetDeck. There's a lot of these tools out there. This is 1% of those. But these are free tools we use. We love them. I highly recommend them. And again, they help you organize your social media so that you can get to the reporting. And then there's paid stuff. And there's a new paid product probably every month. I've reviewed quite a few of them and used many myself. There's Hootsuite Pro, Lithium, Radiant 6. That's a really popular one, but it's very expensive. Vocus, also kind of on the expensive side. It's tied into PR. Tracker, Alterian, Adobe Social Analytics, which is built upon the Omniture Site Catalyst platform. Again, a very expensive paid platform, but pretty powerful, and many others popping up each month. So we're not going to talk about paid ones. I'm trying to give you guys stuff you can go home tonight or this afternoon and actually start using immediately. That's my goal. Okay, how are we doing on time? Pretty good. Okay. Reporting. So let's talk about, again, what are we going to report at the end of the day? That was the value of the tools for reporting and measuring social media. So what we're going to do is we want to report those KPIs. Those are those traditional metrics we talked about early, fans, likes, tied to the things that really matter to our business. Transactions, things like signups, conversions, landing page things, or even sales. So we want to report those things correlated to social media. And then we want to also report case studies, engagement, sentiment, and then our successes and failures. All 4 of these things paint the full picture. You can't just do one of them. You're not telling the full story. So it's important to figure out how to package and combine all of these together. And you're going to do that through dashboards and through some canned or exported reports. And I want you to also talk about failures. Failures are important because it makes you human and it makes your boss believe you. If all day long you're trumpeting your successes, at some point they're going to say, well, is it all really true? I mean, it can't all be rosy. No, you're going to have some failures. And I define failures into 2 buckets. The first bucket are things you did that didn't work. A promotion on Facebook. You have a couple thousand followers, you spent a lot of time and effort getting, you post a coupon code and 1 person buys whatever you were selling. And you were hoping 10. So that might be a failure. You need a report on that. That shows where you need to improve and where you should be spending your time. So your ROI for that campaign may have been negative. Okay? So the other bucket of failures is what you had no control over that failed. And it's not necessarily a failure per se. Maybe there was a customer who had a negative experience and they went online and they told lots of people about it, or they complained anonymously on one of those crappy sites I mentioned earlier. So you should report on that. We had 5 complaints last month. The reason that's important is A, it deflects it off of you. No, but in seriousness, it's important because it represents where your business has an opportunity to improve and where your risks are. So for instance, for us, if within a month we see a number of complaints, tweets, Facebook posts, whatever, on financial aid, we know, geez, what's going on in our financial aid department. We can call up the dean of that department, the head of that department, and say, we're getting more complaints than normally. What's going on? And they can say, well, here's what happened. So that really helps you communicate to the organization and identify those risks and opportunities. Engagement and sentiment, we talked about that, so I'm going to show you an example. These are the different examples I'm going to show you. And then case studies, really, really important to talk about case studies. As we said before, not everything you do has a quantitative counterpart, meaning I ran a campaign and we had 6 signups, 15 visits, and 500 views. That would be really easy. Some of the things we do are based upon processes and activities, and a case study may be more appropriate to measure and report on that particular experience. And so when I talk about case study, it's not like a 3,000-word essay. We do 1-page case studies at the university, and I'm going to show you an example of one. And then you've got your dashboards here. So, okay, what we're going to do first is I'm going to be switching to the laptop and moving back and forth a little bit. So let me see which thing we're going to show first. So let's talk about example 1 here, a case study. And so I think what I can do here is pull up a case study for you guys and we can talk about it a little bit. Okay. And let's try and zoom in a little bit. This is a real case study. I'm not making this up. Basically, what we're doing, this is 1 page. If your case study is longer than a page and you expect people to read it, stop. They're not, right? Think about how many newsletters we get and emails every day. Now think about your executives. If you really want them to read it, you need to say everything that you need to say in 2 sentences. And if they want to learn more, provide details. That's what I'm talking about, a case study. So for us, there was, we were listening. Part of our strategy, again, is listening. And I'll just read this to you in case you can't see it. But basically, a member of our marketing team who wasn't responsible for social media. But because everybody's trained in marketing to deal with social media, everybody's listening. It's a team effort. A member of our marketing team discovered a post on an obscure forum, govloop.com. It's only obscure because I hadn't heard of it, right? If I've heard of it, then geez, it's not obscure. But no, seriously, govloop.com, it wasn't something we normally listen to. Like Facebook, we're listening to every minute of every day, it seems like. but govloop.com, I hadn't heard of it until this case study. Our staff member saw an interesting post and sent it to our social media team. They knew how to do that because they've been trained. We've had training university-wide by our team. And so the post was a question regarding American Military University, which is our school there, and our disaster management program. The social media team, Keisha, Nicole, and folks, following our standard operating procedures, engaged the user. The result of the engagement was a new student enrollment. Okay, so, and then we explain it below. And basically what happened was, we had a coworker see this post, and they sent it to us. We have university ambassadors. Many of you who went to brick and mortar schools probably think of the university guides or the tour guides, right? So we don't have tour guides, but we have ambassadors, people that are our students that evangelize the university. They're not compensated, they're just kind of our cheerleaders. And we have an ambassador in that program. So what we did is we emailed our ambassador of the disaster management program and said, hey, there's this post on this forum called govloop.com. Can you check it out and maybe reply? And so the student ambassador did that. And when they did that, they engaged this prospective student and said, hi, you know, I'm an alum of the program. Be happy to answer any questions, but you don't have to take my word for it. Check out that program, the Disaster Management Program's LinkedIn group, where there's 1,200 students, alumni, and faculty, I think it's 1,500 now, on LinkedIn, and they'll answer all your questions. So, long story short, a couple weeks later, the student tweeted back, or not tweeted back, but posted back, thanking the student for that information, saying that they had joined the LinkedIn group, had a great conversation with a faculty member and a couple of students, and decided to enroll.
That's awesome.
That is our ROI of social media. Now, how do you calculate that in a number? Well, we can say we had 52 engagements, and one of them led to enrollments, but do we really know the other 51 engagements? No, they were influential perhaps. So it's important to document these, so when somebody says, what's the ROI of social media? Instead of saying your mom, you could hand them a one-page case study and say, this is the ROI of social media. And any executive will understand that. So it takes about 10 minutes to write one of these up. Do it every time you have a big win. Now I will also tell you, you want to do them when you have a negative experience. So I'm going to show you a negative case study really quickly. We're human, so we have them. Okay. Facebook complaint case study, November 2011. Okay, what happened? If you go to our Facebook page, we have 105,000 students. Now, not all of them are on Facebook, but you can only imagine at a university with that many students, some are going to be unhappy. Somebody's going to get an F for missing an exam and never heard back from a professor, or they got a D and they didn't get any feedback on the paper. They're going to be upset. 20 years ago, all a student could do is maybe talk to their advisor or their dean. Now they can go online and spill their guts. So we had an experience where, again, 2 sentences, maybe 3 here. A member of our marketing team discovered a post on our official Facebook page calling out a staff member by name, complaining about the service he had received. A series of events then transpired which escalated in posts actually being deleted by us. Ultimately, the student's issues were resolved, and he returned to Facebook both apologetic and grateful for the high level of customer service provided to him. Wow, talk about turning somebody unhappy and then making them apologize for being unhappy. That's like a double win, right? Good job, Nicole. So what happened? All right, so they were having issues with, what was it? Oh, financial aid. Anytime money is involved, people get unhappy real fast. We were actually helping this student before November when they came to Facebook and said, hey, I'm having an issue with financial aid. They were real cordial about it. Offline, we emailed them and said, hey, send us a note. We'll try to escalate it for you. Clearly, that didn't help. And a couple weeks later, he returned to Facebook and just went nuts. So I think there was swearing, there was threats. He mentioned staff by name. These were all violations of our Facebook policy. And we have a policy to post it on our Facebook page and on our website. Keep it simple. We just basically outlined the rules of engagement, saying, you know, you can't spam, you can't solicit, you can't swear, you have to be polite, the basics, right? Just don't do anything that your mom would see and you'd be okay with it. That's kind of the rule. So they violated that, so we deleted the posts. When we delete our posts, by the way, we take a screenshot so we have evidence and we keep the screenshot in a safe location. And then we post it back. We deleted your post because it violated our policy. If that continues, we typically then ban a user. You need to have a policy for that, so when the time gets to that point, you're not making rash decisions. You have it all planned out and justified, and your CEO doesn't say, why did you start deleting posts, right? You can say, well, we deleted them because they were swearing. So we deleted it. So when you delete posts on Facebook, that has to be your last resort, because you need to think like a chess player. What is going to happen? Anticipate the next move. Anybody guess what happens when you delete a post on Facebook? Right, they want to know why, and then they go right back to Facebook, and it gets a lot worse, right? So you need to anticipate that. So this student then called student services, financial aid. I think they were calling secretaries and admins and deans, ranting, leaving phone messages saying, you deleted my post, that's unacceptable, it's arbitrary, you know, F you, and I'm gonna drop out of the university, you guys suck, eat my shorts type of thing. I mean, it was pretty bad, right? And we get those. We're a real university, we get that sort of thing. So we sent an email to the student, we explained the social media policy, it's in black and white, it's right there. We explained that we're trying to help you. If you want to work with us, let us help you. We escalated the issue to the right people at the university. They were able to solve his problem and clear up the confusion. Because we kept calm and were helpful and we were empathetic, we empathized that the student was having an issue, we were not defensive, and we were very transparent, the student ultimately came back to us and said, thank you so much, I'm really sorry for my behavior. They were embarrassed, right? So sometimes that's part of the game. So writing up a case study about that really helped us, and it helped explain. Question?
So you have background and details. What else? Do you have any other sections that you?
Yeah, it would help if I showed you, right? We have a conclusion. That's it, right? So one page. The conclusion is basically justifying the results of our action. It's the ROI statement. So the background explains the incident and how it was resolved. The details go into the details. And then our conclusion, right? We just keep it really simple. And this is a long conclusion. Usually my conclusions are like 2 sentences. This one just says, our monitoring, triage, and escalation procedures played a key role in diffusing and resolving this issue. Because all of those were used, we want to justify the amount of time we spent building those policies and show people, yeah, we actually follow them and they actually work. How many times have you created documents and done training sessions and then you never revisit them again, right? So this kind of helps us explain why we do what we do. So those are examples of case studies. Let's go back here. Okay, engagement and sentiment. So let's see. So if you're not great at Excel, this is not that difficult to use, and I'm happy to send you the spreadsheet if you just DM me or go to my blog and ask for it. This is our social media engagement dashboard. Now, I've kind of protected the innocent here, and I've obfuscated some of the data. So this is not actual real data. I've just kind of made it up. What I'm doing here is I'm tracking sentiment over time, and I've got a little chart here, negative, neutral, and positive. And you can kind of see it, right? The negative is red, the positive is green, and everything else is blue. That's that bell curve I was talking about, so now it should kind of make a little bit more sense. So I'm tracking it all time, and then the last 7 days to see if I see any trends. And then over here I have by platform. So we spend most of our time on Facebook, Twitter, blogging, and then forums, and then miscellaneous. So basically every time we have an engagement, we're just tracking where it was, and that just shows us where all the action is, okay? And if We then correlate this engagement to our ROI metrics, for instance, referrals to our website, and we see that we're getting no e-commerce out of Facebook, or we're getting no referrals from Facebook. Maybe we should be spending less time. So why are we spending, it looks like 73% of our time on Facebook, so we want to justify that. And again, I have it for all time and then the last 7 days. And then down here I have by type. We only track 2 things. You could track a few others, I suppose. We have posts and replies. So how much of it are we pushing and how much are we reacting? So you can see it's actually, for us here, it's, well again, I kind of made this data up. So it's split here pretty evenly. Okay, so how do you actually track this up? So obviously these are just pie charts. This is the simplest, I'm going to make this bigger. This is the simplest spreadsheet you could ever create. Date, so, you know, pretty obvious. Platform, you just put in what platform you had your engagement on, your interaction type. Remember we said reply or post, and then the sentiment level. And we put a little note in there so we can go back to it. That's an optional field. You don't need the note for the report. We like the note because you can see how many fields we already have, 2,500. So if you're really good at note taking and you know you answered a question by that TPS report cover sheet requirement, but you can't remember what the answer is, you can just do a quick, you know, find in your spreadsheet and say, oh, I answered that last year and here's the answer. So that's sometimes a good idea. For us, we just kind of put what we did, but you could also put your answer in there, and that's why we have this little more category hiding, but you can see we don't really use it that often. Now we got fancy with our spreadsheet, and so what we did was we created little Excel drop boxes, so that way when people, when our social media folks, they don't have to do anything but just click a drop down box, say okay it's Twitter, it was a post or, whoops, a post or a reply, so they can select that. And then the the sentiment, was it neutral, positive, or negative? You can build all that in Excel. It's free. You can just use Excel's help to figure out. Just type in drop-down box, and they'll help you figure that out. And again, this dashboard is just based upon that. So again, what this is telling me, I kind of warned you not to make too many decisions based upon this all by itself, because you're always going to have that negative. And it's always going to represent a larger piece of your pie than reality is, because most of your customers are neutral. They're happy with their service, but they don't have any need to go to the internet and say something. So most of your stuff is going to be here. So this engagement is important to us. It shows us where we're spending our time, where the action is, where we should focus, and then by type, are we being reactive or proactive? So, okay, questions?
Do you have any carrots or sticks for your staff to get them to
No, we don't. Other than the fact that if they don't, they're not getting their job. Yeah, Nicole's going to buy you a drink afterwards. Actually, in the education world, we are not allowed to compensate employees who are customer or student facing. It's a regulated, education is a highly regulated space, so we don't, but that could be something that you could do. I saw another question over there.
So I would have thought naturally that when you're measuring sentiment, you mean the sentiment of public who's posting about you, but it looked like on your spreadsheet, when I looked at what you're deemed neutral and positive, it seemed like you're actually measuring what your staff, whether what they had said was positive or negative or neutral. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are you measuring?
We're measuring what other people are saying. If it wasn't communicated there.
Public is saying, and engagement is what your staff is saying. Is that
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Question.
So when you're actually having a conversation, since that's a main goal on social media, do you record that I made this post and then this person replied to me? But if this person asks you a question, do you put it under reply or post when you reply back to them?
It would be a reply, and we try to track every single touch point. So if we reply 6 times, we try to record it 6 times. It depends. If they say thank you at the end, right, you don't need to record that. It's completely up to you on how you want to do it. You can record interactions as one complete engagement. So if it was 15 comments back and forth, you can count that as one engagement. It started out as somebody posting a question, so you would calculate that as a reply. Even though there was a thread, it's just one entry in your spreadsheet, it was positive, and it was on Facebook. So you can kind of aggregate that up.
I've got a few questions, but I'll just ask one right now. It seems like your main theory about ROI is very qualitative. And as I was joking here with the person here, it's like the finance person would kind of go, oh, yeah, right, that's ROI. But it seems very similar to PR or customer service. Can you take it to a finance person and say this is similar to things in the past and like customer service and PR for an ROI?
Yes. So yeah. So the quantitative stuff, we're gonna do some quantitative stuff in just a minute. So hopefully I'm gonna answer that question with a few things I'm gonna show you in a minute. If I don't, then call me out on it and I'll try to clarify. So this is a simple sentiment dashboard, and what I want to do is next I'm going to show you our KPI dashboard. So hopefully this will be a little bit more quantitative. So you can tell I don't spend a lot of time making Excel look pretty. You can do that if you want. This is our communities dashboard. Again, I've obfuscated the data, so it's not real data. Directionally, it's kind of. Okay, what we're looking at here are all the things we do. There's something on here called MySpace. I've never heard of that. Ouch. Justin Timberlake, my hero. And then we have it by month. So you need to figure out the frequency of what you want to track. Daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. If you're a small business and you have 25 followers on Facebook, tracking that daily doesn't make sense, right? So figure out the frequency that works for you. Like I said, we have a lot of social media presence and we still do just monthly. Over here, what we're doing here is this is the KPI for the particular site that we monitor. So this could sound a little confusing, but basically for Facebook, it's the number of fans. For Twitter, the number of followers. For LinkedIn, it's the members. MySpace, it's the number of members. iTunes. We have an iTunes University page which has like lectures, webcasts, and things like that. So that's a number of views or downloads of our iTunes U stuff. YouTube video views, Vimeo video views, and then blogs is the number of visits. So all those metrics are different. So it doesn't make sense to really sum or total them. So this is just a directional dashboard. Now down here, data is all in good, but we're very visual people. And making sure that you can communicate that outward in a visual manner might make a little bit more sense. So what you can see here is each of these sites has its own line, and you can see the trend. And what I've illustrated in this graph is like, oh, I didn't see it in the table, but there was a clear spike somewhere around April where we had a lot of activity, and then we kind of dipped back down to normal, and then we've slowly grown, and there was a little hike there, and it's kind of plateaued the last quarter of the year. So you can kind of go back to April and be like, well, what did we do in April? Maybe we had a big product announcement, or the university had a big announcement, or you had a new product launch. So this helps you look at that over time. And again, the numbers, the scale doesn't really matter, so you can kind of ignore that. It's just the trend line you want to look. Hopefully you're trending upward. What if I did this graph? And so graph type is really, really important, because if I change this graph into a bar graph, I mean, that's not useful, is it? It's comparing each different platform. Do I really care tweets versus, iTunes U downloads? No. So it's really important that you spend some time learning how to use the different tools in Excel for communicating charts. This is not useful, but that trend line tells a great story. So Control Z, my favorite key, and we're back to our graph that tells a story here. Okay, so you'll notice down here, if you can see, I've got these extra tabs now. I've got one for each platform: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, MySpace, etc. And what you can see here on the left, these are all the different Facebook pages. I told you we have a lot of social media presence. We have pages for all of our different schools and programs, so criminal justice, legal studies, hospitality, homeland security, and then our main school pages. And basically, again, I've changed the data around a little bit, but what we're tracking here is the total each month. We just, at the end of the month, count up, plug it in the spreadsheet. And then what we do is a delta, month over month gain. So if you look at the November number versus December, it was only a 2% gain. So you can see it gained about 1,000, so it's about 2% of 52,000. But you can see September over August grew by 63%. So now what you can do is you can see a trend on Facebook. Well, geez, we really grew on Facebook. What did we do? What worked? And you can go back. So as a university, maybe we sent every student an email saying, hey, join us on Facebook, and that drove the action. So you can do that. Again, we just did a little delta month over month, totals, and then you can see when we launched different groups, we started tracking them over time. I'll show you one more for Twitter. Same concept. These are all our different handles, and then the total number of followers, and then the delta is just the growth. And again, this doesn't tell the complete story, but if we pair it with a case study saying that we had a student ask us a question and we resolved it and they're happy now, that's a win. So do a case study on that and say when we, or if you're doing a promotion and you post a coupon code or an announcement and you get a lot of people to your website, you can measure that. You can say, well, in January, we did an announcement on Twitter and we had a 300% increase in people clicking from Twitter to our website. So that is some of that quantitative ROI you can communicate out. So again, this is just a really easy spreadsheet. You can create all of these tabs, and then the dashboard is driven right off of this tab. So if you're really good with Excel, you can see that I'm just pulling from the Vimeo spreadsheet and then a total column. So pretty easy to do. I can send you kind of a template for this if you send me a message, but it's really easy to figure out, and you just plug in your numbers. Okay. So example 3 we just did. So we're doing pretty well on time here. I promise I'll stop in a minute and take some more questions. I really want to move into canned reports because one of the most important things that I think you'll be able to take away from today, hopefully, is earned media and quantifying that value to your organization, and that's at the end, so you really have to stay awake. Let's talk about, I'm going to skip canned reports, and I want to talk about share and education. This is a really important component of what you're doing in social media. I look around the room, and it's a diverse crowd, right? Social media, both in age and ethnicity, and I'm sure organizationally, I saw where some of you guys work. Social media is pervasive. And it's important that we don't just jump on the bandwagon and do something just for the sake because everybody else is doing it. So that's why we're talking about measuring. But sharing and educating is just as important because there are other people in your organization that maybe pay your paycheck, that write your paycheck, that want to know that they hired you for a good reason. And so what we do at the university is we regularly educate employees who are not in marketing and who are not involved in social media at all with what we're doing. And we share some case studies. We have a conference call where people can see fancy charts and can see how it might affect them. But also it's important for your executives. And I mentioned earlier that if you do a case study, it needs to be short because executives have a short attention span. So what you want to do when you're communicating to those decision makers above you is highlight reels. So what we do at the university is we put together a quarterly report. So we just do it 4 times a year. And the quarterly report is a document where we talk about each platform that we're actively engaged on. We talk about YouTube, we talk about Facebook, Twitter, etc. And we highlight the stuff or the accomplishments or the failures that we had that previous quarter. So we say on YouTube we had 32 new videos uploaded and visits grew 32%. On Facebook we say we had 300 engagements, 98% positive, 2% negative. or whatever. So we kind of sum everything up as a story, and we tell a story. We put an introduction that sums up the quarter. The quarter for us was really good. We had a lot of great wins. We had customer service issues we were able to resolve timely. We got a couple shout outs. We might have a screenshot or a clip of something somebody said. Thank you so much for helping me, you know, on Facebook. So we just tell the full story. We kind of summarize in a page or two what we did the last couple months. And then at the end we might clip on a couple pretty charts that just shows that growth, like I did there, or maybe it's a Google Analytics report or a Facebook Insights report. It's important not to just attach a report without explaining it. So you want to make sure that you're telling that story and communicating it really well to your executives. They will really appreciate it. The only caveat I have for you is that if you start doing something on a quarterly basis, people are going to expect it. So don't bite off too much. Start small. Start with a quick summary. Question?
So how do you prepare executives for the realism of social media? What I mean by the realism, I mean, hey, we've got a social media initiative. Throw a switch, sit back, watch everybody pour in.
Yeah.
I dealt with this on a regular basis where I would give my reports, and my executive kept saying, well, why aren't our numbers growing? Why aren't our numbers growing? And I'm trying to cultivate, you know, how do you explain to them, well, we've got a community, now we need to cultivate it, then we can concentrate on growth. But executives, at least the ones that I dealt with and some of the clients that I dealt with, is like, no, I want growth, I want growth, I want growth. They're expecting those million views, like the FedEx guy who was
right, they want the viral video, they want the
Exactly.
advertising
That's what
video.
they're expecting. How do you prepare executives for that?
It's a great question, and unfortunately there's no silver bullet to that, right, obviously. But you know what, it goes back to our roles as marketers, in my opinion, and creating a briefing. You've got to set and manage those expectations. So we create a marketing briefing if we're doing a big campaign that explains what our objective is. Always start with your objective, okay? We are doing a campaign on Facebook. Our objective is to generate 100 new sales, or 100 new sales leads, or 100 new newsletter signups. Here's how we're going to do it, and here's how we're going to measure it. If you can't answer those three questions, I think then, you know, the executive has a reason to be confused as to why they're paying you to do social media. So, you know, objectives are very, very important, because without that, you're really kind of directionless. You're just kind of floating in the wind. So I would start with a one-page product campaign briefing. Like I said, in the executive world, you got to do it in one page or less, I think. And let that then be the driver to having a conversation and providing the executive team with the details that they need if they need that. We're lucky at the university that we have buy-in on social media, and I'm entrusted as an individual strategically to drive that. So really what all we're doing is quarterly kind of justifying our existence through that report and through the case studies and through some of those KPIs. So they already get it. If your team doesn't get it, starting with some of these reports and the briefing, I think will do really well for you. I want to switch gears and then actually show you some of this stuff now. But I'm on the wrong page, sorry about that. So what we're going to talk about is Google Analytics. I promised to show you, and we're running a little bit tight on time. So there are a couple different reports I want to show you, and I'm going to kind of just get out of the way here and run through these. I want to show you social reports, traffic reports, and custom segments, and then multi-channel funnels. So if you don't have a Google Analytics account, you need to get one, and sign up for it by the end of the day, and you can get running with that. So the first, I'm going to grab my cheat sheet here so I don't have to keep switching back and forth for you guys. The first report we're going to talk about is something new in Google Analytics that just came out with the upgrade. It's the social tab right here. So once you log in, you're going to see this new social section, and there's three parts to it. There's something called engagement, action, and pages. So basically, I haven't set this up on this particular profile, so you're going to see a lot of empty data, but we can talk about it real briefly here. So basically, out of the box, Google Analytics can track visits to your site of people who are quote unquote socially engaged. And you need to kind of understand what that means. Basically, it's somebody who has performed an action on your website, like a +1 for Google, or a like or a fan, or they've shared on Facebook, or they've tweeted out your content. Out of the box, Google Analytics can give you some of that. There is an additional line of code you need to add if you want to track things like Facebook and other types of events that aren't available. But you can track almost anything. And if you go into Google Analytics and go to help and just type in social tracking, it'll tell you how to set that up. So basically, once you drill into socially engaged, Google's going to break that down for you based upon how you've defined it. So you can see here, and again, I haven't really set this up, there's not a lot of data, I apologize, but you can see we're tracking right out of the box how many people have +1'd our site, and then people who have used, you know, share this and add this. So you might have fans here, and you would see a count of fans. And then you can track all of those KPIs, so the number of pages of somebody who +1'd us, you can see they're not really visiting you know, a lot of pages, but maybe you can see some metrics like conversions. So if you're using goals and conversions on Google, you can count like the number of signups for people who have also +1'd you, and you can see what the value is of having all those different plugins. So then you have the action, right? So that's what we just talked about, the different actions over time, and again you can correlate that to those metrics, and then also the pages. So what you're seeing here is Google showing you where those actions are taking place. So you can see on one of our blogs, and then one of our web pages. So this would show you where all the activity is happening to see if those plugins you're putting on your site, on your WordPress site, or that Facebook like button is actually working. So these are great reports right out of the box. You can go in and you can export them, play with them in Excel. Really, really great reports that Google's added to the matrix.
Question about that? Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you track the number of people who are tagging or pinning something from Pinterest with that kind of tool, or no?
Good question. No, because the activity is happening outside of your website.
Okay.
If the activity is happening on your website, on your web server, you can. However, you could track the number of people that are coming to your site, obviously from Pinterest. Yeah, and I'm going to actually show you that right now. And that's, so the first set of reports are social that you can focus on. The next one are under traffic sources, right here on the left. And if you drill into sources, this is telling you where people are coming from to get to your site. So their last click before they enter. So they're coming from Yahoo Mail, you send out an email campaign. They're coming into your site, or are they coming from Facebook, or are they coming from a banner ad you've got on another website. So what you can do is you can go into your referrals and you can type in Facebook into the filter right there and search, and you can see, hopefully you can see this. I'm going to scroll down a little bit to make it higher on the screen. Here's Facebook.com, and you can see that there was 1,589 visits from Facebook directly to our site in the reporting period, which I think is the last 30 days. And the average number of pages they viewed, and the time on the site, and the bounce rate. But you can also correlate that to your goals. So for instance, we have an application on our website, right? Apply for admission. So it would be interesting for us to know how many people came from Facebook and in that same session, that browser session, actually applied. And you can see we had 0.88%, so about 1%. So maybe we should be on Facebook a little bit more and try to drive that if that's a good source of new students for us. Then you can see down here mobile, and then touch, and then x.facebook is probably an application. They didn't really get a lot. But so we have a fair amount of our traffic from Facebook is coming from mobile. Well, that's interesting. Is my website mobile friendly? Well, maybe it should be, because about 20% are coming mobile. So this is a great report. Now, if you've got, hang on to that question for a second, if you've got a lot of different, sites, typing them in one by one is kind of a pain in the ass. So one of the things you need to learn about Google Analytics is how to create a custom segment. And what that is basically you've got all the traffic to your website in a huge database bucket. How can you segment out just a portion to focus in on that? And the portion we want to look at is the bucket of all visitors coming from what we define as social media sites. Blogs, Facebook, Twitter, etc. I want to just look at the behavior of all of those. I don't care if it's Facebook or Twitter, I just want to know everybody that's social. So what I can do is there's a feature called advanced segments. So right now I'm looking at all the traffic, but what I can do is I can create a social media traffic segment and apply that, and I'll show you how to create that segment in a second. It's pretty easy. So now what it's doing is it's only showing me people who came from that bucket. And now I can look at that behavior aggregate. So I can see over time how social media is driving traffic to my site on a whole, and the KPIs for my business up here, and then I can look at applications or signups to newsletter or even e-commerce. Again, if I'm trying to sell something, I can tie the e-commerce reports in Google Analytics to visits in social, and I can say, well, social traffic spends twice as more than organic traffic, or vice versa. So these are some of those reports that start telling that complete story. So the next thing, let me show you how to create that advanced segment real quickly here. Let's see. I'm going to actually hit the edit button. But basically what I've done is I'm telling Google to include the sources. Remember, I'm in the source report and I typed Facebook as a filter. So I'm basically just creating all of those filters and daisy chaining them together. And you can see Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I've got MySpace on there, Wikipedia, even Hootsuite in there. I'm basically just ORing them all together, saying include traffic that came from all of those sources, and then I just name it social media traffic, and I'm good to go. So super easy to create. If I go back here, let me cancel out of this. You can also do an and statement. So show me traffic that came from Facebook and spent 30 minutes or more on my website. So you can segment out almost any way. So you can segment by these different dimensions. So we're gonna hit save there. And again, to get to all of that, just go into your advanced segments. You can say create a new segment here, and it just walks you through it. So we want to look at sources. We want to filter by sources. So we click sources, and we say containing Facebook. And then we just type the name. This is the Facebook filter, right? Facebook. And then you hit save. It's really that easy. So spend some time learning how to segment by your traffic and you'll be in good shape. The last thing I want to show you real quickly here is something called multi-channel funnels. And it's under conversions here, all the way at the bottom. So you have to have conversion tracking set up. So if you're not tracking those signups or those sales, you can't use multi-channel funnels. But it's kind of a new thing the last several months for Google. And basically what it's showing you, I'm going to discard my changes. Okay, multi-channel funnels basically shows you, I'm just going to read it, I apologize for saying that, but anatomy of your conversion path. So if your conversion is a sign up, it shows you all the different things on your website that influence somebody to get to that goal. So, for instance, and this gets complicated, it's all about attribution. We're not really going to dive into that, but basically what you can start doing is look at paid advertising, direct visits, organic search, social networks, and you can see what influences people to get to that ultimate conversion goal. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time explaining this, but you can see the Venn diagram here. The three things I have checked is a small portion. So only 1.8% need 3 different touch points, meaning they clicked on an ad, they also visited organically, and they searched for you. So these are all the different ways people find your website, and Google through cookies and tracking can tell you that most people come through paid or most come from organic, but there's a few that need multiple touch points. So what you can do is look into assisted conversions, and this is one of my favorite reports. And basically this is saying that, for instance, down here is right at the bottom, it's a little hard to see. Social networks only assisted, this is made up data, so ignore that, it's just filler data. You can see social networks in this profile led to 9 conversions. That organic search led to more conversions, and this company generated $1 million in revenue. Again, this is not real data. So you can kind of see the influence level of different things and how they relate to each other. I'm really not going to dive into this, but it's a great report to have and look at.
Can I just ask a really quick?
Sure.
What do you call a conversion? Because you can't actually tell if a student has enrolled simply by what they clicked online, right? So how do you?
Right. So for us, it's whether or not they filled out an application or signed up for a newsletter.
Whatever you can track.
Yeah.
I'm curious, when you're making a distinction between paid advertising and social media channels, do you also make a distinction, so for example, we use promoted tweets and you know, things of that nature to drive leads into our site. Would you make a distinction between those types of conversions or interactions as paid advertising versus social media, and how do you draw that?
That's a great question. I would suggest, if you're doing paid social media, to measure that as a separate bucket and create a different bucket. And you can create a different bucket if it's trackable and discernible. So if everybody's still coming from Twitter, but you have a different tracking URL in the offer, then you can track it and you can separate it. But if it's all coming through the same URL, or if it's all just coming from Twitter or from Facebook, that may be difficult, and so you might not be able to do that.
So you're saying you have a paid advertising, a paid social media advertising,
Yeah.
and then social media.
And this is all customizable in Google Analytics. You could create your own bucket called Dan's Mystery Bucket, and that could be everybody that came in from my blog. And maybe I want to measure that separately. So you can get really high level like this. This is, again, default right out of the box for Google Analytics. I just tried to set up a profile here. And then you can drill into that and really define what organic search is. You could even add your paid social into your paid advertising bucket. I'm going to run to Facebook really quickly and talk about this because there's a lot here. Hang on to your question one sec. I know I get to Facebook really quickly. I want to talk about what earned media is. So a long time ago in PR, earned media was a newspaper writing an article unsolicited about your organization. Apple is coming out with its new iPad 3. It's going to have a smaller screen. New York Times front page article. Apple didn't pay for that. They earned that. That was earned media. And the value of that is based upon the number of subscribers of the New York Times, both online and in the newspaper. But it might also be the amount that you would normally pay for a full page ad on the New York Times. So maybe that's $50,000. So the value of that earned media might be 50 grand. Fast forward to the age of the internet and social media, and earned media has a little bit different value. Let's say you're buying banner ads through Google's display network, through AdWords, and you pay a CPM, a cost per 1,000 impressions, of $2. So if you buy 1,000 impressions, it costs you $2. Let's say you have a Facebook page and you post something on your page that's a poll or a question or an offer, and you have 100 people reply or engage or share that post. Remember that whatever people do on Facebook shows up in their news feed to all their friends. And if the average Facebook person has, let's say, 200 friends, then every time you have another person engage with you, you have 200 potential impressions of your brand, right? That poll that you posted, or your brand name, or your offer. So if you have 100 posts or 100 replies to your Facebook poll, and they each have 200 friends, you multiply 200 times 100, and I believe that's 20,000. And you have 20,000 potential impressions of your brand. So that means if Nicole and I are friends and I engage on the poll for AMU, and she logs into Facebook, and she's going to see in her feed that Dan posted a reply to that Facebook poll. That's a brand impression. So you've got 20,000 potential brand impressions. So you can put a quantitative value to that. And what you can say is, well, if I'm paying $2 on Google for banner ads, and I'm getting 20,000 potential banner ads on Facebook news feeds, well, 20,000, that's 20 CPMs. And if I'm paying $2 on Google, I can multiply the 20 CPM times $2, and I get a value of $40 for that engagement. Okay, that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're doing that every day, and you're getting that type of engagement every day, you can say, based upon our engagement on Facebook, which was 150 different engagements, we had XYZ number of brand impressions, which has a value to our business of $40 in extra advertising that we did not have to pay for, other than time and labor. Hang on. I'll get to questions. Give me 5 more minutes here. So that scales quite a bit, right? If you have a large Facebook page and you've got millions and millions of friends, right? That can be huge. So what I want to show you here is Facebook Insights. If you're an admin of your Facebook page, right, you're going to go in, and I'm logged in right now. You can see this is AMU. This is live data I'm showing you. This is our page. You go down here on the left side and click Insights. Okay, you need to be an admin. The first page you're going to see are some of those KPIs we talked about, like total number of likes. So we have 35,000 people that like our page. The friends of fans. So this is what I'm talking about, earned media here. This is the number of unique people who were friends with people who liked your page. So you can see our fan base of 35,000 actually has about exposure to 15 million people. So imagine if I convince, somehow, stroke of genius, all 35,000 people to reply to my Facebook post, I could get potential impression of about 15 million banner ads. That's huge. Okay, question now.
Thank you. No, I think the impressions from social media, because of the time spent with the impressions, are not equal to other impressions. And
Do you think they're greater or worse? Greater.
How long the post lasts. I mean, the magazine is like 5 impressions per subscription, but the magazine lasts, sits in a doctor's office.
It sure does. And we pay a premium for that, right? Print advertising is expensive. However, I'm going to argue the counter to that social impressions are worth way more. And we've actually seen some data on this. We've seen that friends of our fans tend to be influenced by their friend, right? We're influenced by our friends. If my friend says they just bought a Samsung TV and it's the greatest thing ever, I'm more influenced by that than a Google banner ad. So what I'm going to argue is that you should place a premium on this over Google banner ads. I can't tell you what that premium is, though. There's a lot of data suggesting that, fans are 2 times more likely to buy or 3 times. I think that data is going to evolve over time. But I personally, and at the university, we place a premium on this. So I want to talk about a couple more metrics and reports real quickly, and we'll open it up, and I can stay till noon to answer more questions, because I know we're going to wrap up here. People talking about this, really, really important. This is the number of people who have done something with one of your posts. They could have commented, replied, shared it out. So this is, I think, the last week or so. So you can see 630 different people have done something on our fan page. So okay, it's not 35,000, okay? That's why you can't live and die by that 35,000 number. This is your kind of engagement here. So we've had 630 people interact with our page. And then our total reach, really cool metric here from Facebook. This is the number of people who have actually seen your content. So this is your earned media. So those are the friends of fans that have seen your content. So it's the magnifier of 630. So there have been 18,000 impressions of the AMU brand on Facebook in the last week. And so if my CPM is $2, that's about $36 worth of value there. So I mean, it's not earth-shattering, but there's some good data there. Okay, quick running through some reports here. I love this down here. this shows you the number of posts you're doing. So the larger the bubble, the more posts you've done in a day. So you can see over time, each day, the number of posts. And then down here, you've basically just got your date of your post, what your post was, that reach, again, the number of people who saw the post, the number of people who actually did something with it, and then for, I don't even know how to say that, virality or viralness, it's a made-up word from Facebook. This is basically this metric over this. So it basically means of all the people who saw it, here's how many people actually did something with it to create that earned media opportunity for you. So it's just 11 over 3,200, and that's why you can see it's 1/3%. So you can go over time and look at all your different posts, and you can say, well, wait a second, 1.6%, that was a really good post. So we should look at that, and we should do more of those and fewer of these. We're pleased to announce something. So, right? So, and that makes sense, right? Broadcasting out a PR, not a lot of value, but asking a question, engaging is, and you can see the differences. So as I drill further into the insights, I can get a little bit more data. So this shows me my likes, so who's liking me. So 61% is male, and it breaks out the age groups. Hard to see, 18 to 24-year-old. The average age of a student at our university is about 30. So you can see we're predominantly there. And then it tells you geo stuff. But actually, this report I like the most. This shows you how people are liking you. Admin invites, Facebook recommendations through a mobile app, on a page like your website, in a search. They search for you on Facebook. So this is really important. This should show you how people are coming in, and you can see not only likes, but unlikes. Forgot about that. You can measure that. So that's kind of interesting. Don't take it personally when somebody unlikes you, right? Especially if you're doing promotions, because they're going to like you to get to that promotion, and the next day they're going to unlike you. So careful about that report. And then reach. Same concept here. This is who you're reaching. Remember, reach is those friends. So this shows you who's seeing your impressions, and then down here, where are people coming in? Are you doing paid Facebook ads, or is it just traffic on Facebook, or is it viral, meaning people got to your Facebook page because they saw somebody else's post about you. They clicked it and came onto your page. So that's that viral metric there. Facebook's really good at explaining things, so just hover over that question mark and they'll show you. And then page views. I love this one. It's basically Google Analytics for Facebook. It's just showing you the number of page views per day over time, and then the number of unique people. So obviously people tend to view more than one page. And then if you have tabs, the stuff up on the left used to be across the top. This shows you how many people are on your wall, if you have HTML pages, photos, etc., and it shows you great data there. So if you were really hell-bent on creating and buying an app and installing it to get people to sign up for your newsletter, and 3 months in you spend $1,000 on it and you have 2 people, maybe it wasn't a great ROI. So that's another great way to measure the money and time you're spending. And then external referrals, really hard to see here from the back, but basically this is the websites where people are coming from. So this is our main homepage. And then one of our apps, and then Google. People are searching for us on Google for the university, and they see Facebook in the results, so they're going to the Facebook page to learn more about us. So I love this report. I can stare at it for quite a bit. And then talking about us. So remember, those are people who are doing things. They're either sharing or they're commenting. So down here, these two, people who are talking, and then their reach. That's that earned media right there. So you can see how it can add up over time. So 10,000 is this line here. So basically you can say over the last 30 days we've averaged about 10,000. So that's 300,000 impressions. And so that's 300 CPMs. Again, I made up that $2 number, but if that's what you pay for banners, that's $600 of kind of earned media there, plus maybe a premium. And then finally, check-ins, if that's something you're doing. If we're an online school, it's really hard to check in. But so this is grayed out. Let's see. I think I accidentally went, there we go. too far. Yeah, so you can see how people are checking in on the Facebook website or mobile. So if you're big into Foursquare type of stuff, geolocations, that may be valuable to you. Again, what's the objective? If you're trying to get people to check in, if there's a value for that, then this is a great report. Otherwise, ignore it. Remember, not all of these reports are necessary for your success. So, to wrap things up, so we talked about Google Analytics, Facebook Insight. These are free, so use them. So how much is a fan worth? So are you a fat cat or are you a skinny cat? So the answer to this, I just wanted to spend 1 second and tell you who did those reports. If you go to my blog, I have more information about this. The first number is a report by the analyst firm, and I think she's here. There she is. SynCaps. And I'm not going to do justice explaining your report, but this was a report that was looking at how much do fans spend on average at companies like Starbucks and companies like that. And so they looked at some of these big companies and looked at people who were a fan of the page and who weren't, and compared those metrics. And so they found that fans spent about this much. So in theory, if you added another fan, this would be an incremental value to your organization. We know that's not a one-to-one ratio, especially if you do a promotion to give away something. You're going to get a lot of signups, and they're not all going to be worth that. The $8 is from an analyst company called Chompon, C-H-O-M-P-O-N. And again, I have this online, and this presentation will be online. They figured out it was $8. Doing a slightly different type of analysis. And then $3.60 was by Vitrue, which is spelled V as in Victor, I-T-R-U-E. And they found that incremental fans were worth $3.60 based upon their study. The last one is from Forrester. Most of you have probably heard of them, big IT analyst company. They basically said 0, and it was actually from a blog, Augie Ray's blog. Talks a lot about social media. If you're not familiar with his blog, he said 0. And right, there's no right answer to this question. It's what is your objective, okay? And what are you trying to accomplish with Facebook? Is it engagement like our university? Then fans really aren't worth anything. I'm sure we could do a study saying that for every fan we get you know, a new enrollment, and we could correlate that to tuition dollars. That's not important to us. It's experiential. It's what students are getting out of being on Facebook. So for us, it's not about assigning a value. It's about those case studies and justifying kind of our effort. Again, hopefully you've had enough. I'm going to stop and let a couple more questions. This is how you contact, this is my dog. He was born in Harper's Ferry, so his name is Harper. And you can just Google me. He's a lot bigger than that now. He's a part beagle, part lab. So he's got a big old beagle tail and spotted paws. Okay, so I know there's some more questions. I'm here until the next half an hour, so I'm happy to take, I've got a couple questions. Well, let me just take a couple of these. Are there any in the audience? Okay, yeah.
On the Google Social tool, you mentioned that was for add this and share this.
Yeah, out of the box, it does obviously Google+, and it does add this, share this, and I think it may also do Twitter. There's an extra line of code you have to add to your website on pages that have Facebook plugins, and if you just Google that, you can find that out.
Okay.
Questions in the back?
You had a graph towards the beginning that compared the different social media sites and effectiveness of them over months.
Yes.
I'm just curious, what did you use to compare them, on somewhat
Yeah, well actually we don't. We really don't compare what we're doing on Twitter with Facebook. We just look at the trend over time. Our objective with Twitter was to get followers because we want to spread our gospel and we want to make sure our students are exposed to our information. So for us it literally was about getting more followers. But for you, if it's about more of generating sales or clicks, that can be that KPI that you measure. Somebody asked, how can we occasionally reach a narrower and more specific audience? That's more of an engagement question than a measurement question, so I'm kind of going to defer that. But I'm just going to say it really depends on what your objective is in reaching a small audience. You know, getting people to sign up for a newsletter, that's going to be a narrow audience. So doing something on Facebook where you're encouraging signups could work. Brian asked, says, measure against opportunity, not competition or clout. No, I like that comment. I guess it's not a question.
Brian Solis recommends that you.
Oh, that's a recommendation. Yeah, no, I agree, right? You want to look at your opportunities. Clout is arbitrary. I mean, it is based upon an algorithm. There is a clout score, so you can track yourself over time. But bottom line is you really want to look at what you're doing with social media as your measurement for your opportunities and risks. Any other questions? Yes?
So another question I have is, how do we get beyond the corporate limitations that are thrust upon us? And I'll give you an example. At the place where I used to work, they got a negative comment on Facebook, and everybody flipped out.
Yeah.
I mean, just you know, all hands on deck. And the bottom line was that it was really poorly handled because the person that they were outsourcing their social media. Long story behind that too, but they were outsourcing their social media, and the people that they were working with, third party, all they had were canned responses.
Yeah.
So they said that was a very good question. Well, a bunch of us at this business got together and said we need to have a reaction to it. We need to have somebody that's monitoring.
You have to have a crisis plan, a monitoring plan, and policies.
We were shut down. We were told it's too expensive. And the other parties that were involved said if it wasn't too expensive, you can't. The exact term or the answer you're given is you cannot speak to the voice of the company. So how do you get?
Yeah, I mean that's a tough challenge. I mean, I like to take that offline just because it's not an ROI measurement question. But basically, you can do it for free. This is a flow chart that helps explain that. Hopefully, you all got this. You need to build policies. They need to be simple and straightforward. You need to be able to communicate and educate. The first year I was on the job for the university, I'd get like 9 emails when there was a negative comment. Now I get none. And that's because I've educated and trained people to trust the social media team, the policies and procedures we have. I'm fortunate enough that we were successful in doing that. Outsourcing social media is something that as a professional in marketing is I believe is a double-edged sword. It's a high risk for you, and I think it's a lower ROI. But if you're a small business, it can add some value. But yeah, the bottom line is it is possible to create policies and procedures on the cheap, for free, that actually do work. Our university is a case in point of that, and we have these things that people buy into, and I think it's about education. Question in the back there. Yeah, go ahead.
Related to internal education is because a lot of the analytics software you're showing us is so easily available, how much of your team is able to see that on a daily basis?
Great question. Everyone. We've decided we're a university, and the decentralization of information is very important to us. There are risks that are associated with doing that. People will interpret data differently if it's not explained to them. So that's why we educate regularly and we explain the data. But anybody who approaches me that wants access to the data is granted access, provided they sit through the training. Your company may have a different policy and hold data tightly. That's never been my philosophy. I mean, information is power, but I also believe in the democratization of information. Google Analytics, it's an analytic tool, and not everybody's analytical. So giving it to somebody who is a more content-oriented might not interpret it the proper way. So what I would encourage you to do is understand what people want to know, and then figure out the best way to empower them to get that information. With Google, you can schedule reports, and so maybe you can have a report emailed to them, or maybe they can rely on you to send them a report. But our team lives and breathes by this data, and it's religion. It's part of everything we do.
Thank you.
All the way in the back left, or
I
right?
have kind of like a two-part question. My first question is, and I don't know if you've already covered this, so I apologize, but do you have staff or employees, personnel of the university that are able to like the page but not comment? So, for instance, your social media team controls the response and the replies.
Yeah.
Does that also skew your data because they like or so?
Yeah. So obviously, when we report, we're counting faculty that are fans of our pages, so that.
And they're allowed to like.
Oh, absolutely. We believe in embracing and extending social media to every individual in our organization, and every member, be it a student, a faculty member, or an admin assistant, is encouraged to participate in social media. We define very specific parameters for participating, meaning that if I'm an admin assistant for the dean of the School of Education and I'm reading my Facebook newsfeed and I see a question about financial aid, we have told people that they're not authorized to answer that question unless it's within their domain of expertise. So our social media team says, sure, engage, have a conversation, participate in the discussion, but when it's only about things that you're an expert on. If it's not, if it's about financial aid and you're in the School of Education, what you can do is send it to the social media team. Chances are we already know about it because we're listening, observing, monitoring, we have tools and people. But we allow everybody to participate, and we expect them to, because we believe social media is not a segment, not a specific thing like accounting. We believe social media is part of everything at the university, and so we want everybody to participate. And they know where to go on the university's intranet to find things like this, to find our crisis plan, to find out what to do if they read something really negative and who to call, even if it's 3 a.m. All of that is mapped out for all our faculty, and every new employee that comes into the university goes through a 30-minute training session on those materials and policy. And we teach them the do's and the don'ts. And I have a lot of that policy information on my blog as well.
I'm doing analysis on ERP, and our social media team is separate from our online ERP team. We just started doing analysis going back since we used SpreadFast. I'm not seeing a direct relationship between activity on Facebook and Twitter and refers to our site. And I was wondering if you noticed, and I haven't done enough to figure out if there's something else going on so we have the numbers. Do you see relationships between activity and engagement? What would be measured in SpreadFast's engagement in Facebook and Twitter and refers to?
Right. So at the end of the day, it depends on what your objective is. So the bottom line for us, it's about creating a positive experience with our students, and so they already know about our website, so we're not using Facebook to get more students to our website. However, prospects come to Facebook and they want to research our school. So we do know we get some traffic. So I think it just depends on what you're looking to measure for that correlation. We know that when we do a promotion or a campaign, we do see bumps. When we send out like an email blast with links to our social communities, we see signups go way up. So I mean, we are able to correlate it, but it just depends on your objective. We've only got a couple more minutes. What I'm going to do, I'll take one more question right there, and then I'm happy to stay after, but I want to make sure everybody is able to hit the road.
We've created a parent-child relationship with Facebook with a corporate site at several locations. And I'm just wondering how that plays into Facebook Insights. Do we get all that information?
So you have multiple Facebook pages?
Yes, but Facebook has something on the back end that connects them all.
Yeah. I actually don't know the answer to that question, but I think Nicole does. So.
While they may be connected, are you talking about how on the top it'll say, you know, subsidiary of whatever? Is that how they connected them for you?
No, we have a locations tab.
Okay.
I do know that the check-ins are cumulative. but I don't know what other metrics.
Yeah.
99.9% certain that each page is going to have its own separate metrics.
Yeah,
But we won't see it on the corporate page.
yeah, I'm not sure you'll see an aggregation of that, but it's not something that I'm an expert on, so I'm not comfortable answering. Okay, so I hope you got a couple takeaways here of value, other than this flow chart, talking about earned media and just marrying KPIs with some of the subjective qualitative measurements like case studies and quarterly reports. Try doing some of those. Feel free to check out our blog. If you have questions about some of the jobs I mentioned, we're hiring a social media person, we're hiring a search person, a web person, and a bunch of other marketing coordinators. Stay afterwards. I'm happy to talk to you about that. And then if you hit my blog, dansoschin.com, I've got a lot of these materials up there. I'm going to try by Thursday to have the recording of this and the PPT uploaded as well. So check that out, and I'll send an email out to all of you. I really appreciate you all coming out to Manassas and joining the university for this presentation. And I wish you a great day and a great week. Thank you.